Hello, you're watching the Wild Horses channel where we have 6 new episodes each week about the main cryptocurrencies, their technologies and possibilities, the first step if you're new in cryptos, what to expect from the markets and what's going on in the news. In today's episode of Tech Dive, we'll reply the question, does technology determine the price? Yesterday we made a video about fundamental analysis and how it goes much beyond reading about technology. So the point today is, does technology reflects or determines the price? So we'll answer this by looking at a specific case, which is Hedera Hashgraph and their coin HBAR. So stay tuned, we're starting right now. Hedera Hashgraph started in early 2018 and it is based on the Hashgraph protocol, which is licensed and patented by Swirt, which is one of the companies behind Hedera Hashgraph Council, which we'll talk about in a minute. So they started trying to compare themselves as a different and better blockchain. So basically how blockchain works, it is a chain of blocks where miners compete to see who has the right to determine the next block. By doing so, they choose at their will transactions that are not confirmed yet, pull them together in a block, and then solve a mathematical problem, which is the proof of work. The winner of this, which is those who solve it faster, publish it. Sometimes two blocks are published simultaneously or concurrently, and that makes a new branch in the chain, and then these branches compete among themselves to see who grows faster, meaning adding more blocks. The winner becomes the main branch, and all the transactions included in previously blocks in this parallel branch are then unconfirmed and goes back to the unconfirmed pool of transactions. That's why some exchanges require more than one confirmation of your transactions before they make the balance appear in your account, because those transactions might be included in blocks that later on will become unconfirmed once more. Well, how Hashgraph works? It doesn't work in blocks, it doesn't work with mining. It's the nodes that compose the network do not mine, do not compete among themselves. They share the information that they receive from the outside world. And this information is an event, and the propagation of this information within the network is also an event. In this propagation, they include not just the information itself, be it a transaction, namely, but also the timestamp of when they themselves knew it. So with time, the information it spreads and it carries on not just who knew what, but when they got to know that. That allows each participant of this network to build a mental model or a symbolic abstract model of the information all over the time, all over the nodes. That allows them to know or to estimate without requesting the information of other nodes when an event occurred, not just based on their own timing, but on the timing that they know the others have about that event. So, for example, let's imagine that we have a queue of people that are waiting for a public service to start in the early morning. Then suddenly a sound happens and it scares them and they shuffle. Now, later on, they realize that it was nothing and they want to go back to the queue. How do they know their position? Well, each one will remember who was already in the queue when they arrived. So after a few minutes, you can rebuild the queue again. In fact, it rebuilds by its own. Of course, you might have some dispute in some positions, like who came before, but then the remembrance of others will help determine who was there first or not. More or less like that is how Hashgraph works, of course, in a nutshell. So That's precisely how it works. The information spreads and then determine the ordering. Why that is important? Well, there are some applications where the ordering is everything. One of them, for instance, is the stock markets. You would like that your order, if it has the same price of your competitors and it arrives first in the market, that it is executed first, because otherwise you need to pay a bit more or gain a less more if you want the order to be executed, and that makes you spend more money or earn less money. So ordering is important in stock markets, where there are other applications where it might not be that important. Also, the throughput of this network, because it does not involve mining, it does not involve proof of work, it does not involve block publishing and spreading to the whole network to be sure that that block is the chosen one. They can achieve, and they do achieve, 100,000 transactions per second, whereas blockchains have 8, not 8,000, 8. So where throughput matters, then Hashgraph has an edge over it. So these are technological advantage in the very basic, as Oder says, the very fabric of the network. But does that help in the upward layers? Well, is there already services running on them? Yes, Hashing System, for example, built a hash name service on Hedera. And what does that do? It's like domain name service. What domain name servers do? It is like telephone list in the internet, where, for example, if you want to go to a specific server like google.com to make a search, you don't write the IP address of that server. You write google.com and your browser finds out what is the IP address, and then it goes that way. Now, the same thing when you're dealing in blockchains, and be it Hedera Hashgraph or not, you have smart contracts, you have wallets, and each one has an address which are not human readable. So you can attach a name to them, and then the name is replaced by this human unreadable address, and then it is found, and then your request is served. So where will that happen? Well, in services like this. So this already is running over Hedera Hashgraph. Carbon is a stable coin that does not belong to Hedera Hashgraph, but relies on Hedera Hashgraph. To give you an example, Tether, which we do not recommend, which we consider a fraud, but it exists and the market accepts. It used to run, maybe you still find some, over Omni, which is a layer over the Bitcoin blockchain. So Tether is a token issued over Omni network, which is an additional layer that runs over Bitcoin blockchain. Nowadays, they are migrating to Ethereum blockchain. They do not belong to Ethereum. Ethereum has nothing to do with them. They were just chosen by the Tether to issue such tokens over them. So like that, Carbon is issued over Hedera Hashgraph. So it is a stable coin running like that. Here we have the top 10 Hedera Hashgraph dApps, meaning the distributed applications that run over Hedera Hashgraph, listed. At that time, it was selected by the Hedera Hashgraph as their top 10. And of course, they have their governing council, which is 39 companies in different regions of the world, in different sectors, to ensure that you have contribution and voting from different regions, different sectors, so no bias regionally, no bias sector-wise, and that ensure, for instance, that there will never be a fork, like two Hedera. It will remain one, concise, and new features are voted from a global corporate perspective. So clearly their focus is corporations, applications, So they want the evolvement of their network, this is our opinion over this, to be in consonance with what corporations all over the world agree with. More or less, this is how we interpret this. So it's a very structured company and council. So they were very much careful, both in the technology, both in the structuring of their proposal. Then they launched a hash bar, which is the native coin of Hedera Hashgraph, started being listed in the exchanges, and what happened was this. From 20 cents the dollar to 3 cents the dollar, and it's remaining there. So it's in the rock bottom, and there it stays, there it lies. So how it comes that all this technology, all this preparation, all this effort does not translate in prices, because that is not enough. And that comes to our point that technology does not mean value, but technology enables value to be delivered through products that solves real problems, that has value to people or to companies or to entities. So you need to build applications over or based on technology that are really valuable solutions. This generates demands for these applications, and to have access to these applications, to be able to use them, you will need the coins. Then this value of the application is transferred to these coins, and that increases the demand. And as the old and good and old law of supply and demand, once the demand rises, prices rises. So that is what's happening right now, hopefully, maybe. So Chainlink is working with Hedera Hashgraph to connect its Hedera Hashgraph, its blockchain, let's call it like that, to the external world in what they call decentralized Oracle networks, not related with the Oracle company, but it is external or off-chain data sources that are then inserted through Chainlink in the Hedera Hashgraph. So the developers of dApps and smart contracts for Hedera Hashgraph are now able to access such data. Wait, but can't they themselves bring such sources to or connect to such sources? Mostly yes, but the sources that they don't connect, they don't have access, and it's much better to connect to an interface, and there lies the data that you need. So Chainlink is extending Hedera value, benefit, possibilities by connecting it to external data sources that might be used by applications running within it. So this is, for example, an important step to raise the value that the Hedera Hashgraph has, to increase the number of dApps and possibly dApps with more value to be then transferred to their coins. So this is what we wanted to present to you today. So just the technology itself, it's not, that's why, and how it can step forward to increase its value. Well, by enriching itself with content or resources or features that makes it more attractive and useful to develop applications, and applications that are useful to their public. That's it for today. Thank you very much. Tomorrow, all things going well, we'll present to you the first steps if you're new in crypto. So see you then. Thank you very much. Bye bye.